Hi, my name is Larice, and I'm giving you this information to help you through your journey with Conn's disease or hyperaldosteronism. And mostly the motivation is to help people have a smoother journey than I did and get to that diagnosis, if it's the correct diagnosis, faster, and to get your solution faster. Before I go any further, please be sure and like my videos. This is an informational series, but I do appreciate if you like it. Subscribe if you want to. So the journey began really 19 years ago, but we didn't know that, with uncontrolled hypertension, high blood pressure, and eventually uncontrolled hypokalemia, which is low potassium. Two of the primary signs of Conn's disease, but I didn't know that, and no medical professional had. All of my doctor's visits, all of my ER visits, they would always go, I wonder what's going on with you. But no one put two and two together until finally, a couple of years ago, a doctor in a little Texas town that I'd moved to, the very first thing he did, he was a cardiac doctor, and the very first thing he did was look at the 4 blood pressure medications that I was on and listen to my story about how I was ending up in the ER with depleted potassium and high blood pressure incidents, one of them causing damage to a mini stroke caused damage to my left retina and resulted in me retiring from my career as a high school counselor working with at-risk students. Very stressful job. And then eventually with adolescent addicts, also very stressful job. So the journey really began once he said, that sounds like Conn's disease. And I could have just fallen down on the ground and worshiped him at that point. I began immediately to look for an endocrinologist. The one in our little town really dealt with mainly diabetes. So I did end up going to San Antonio, which is only 40 miles away. And the first endocrinologist I went to, this is my warning part of the video, is really pay attention to what tests they're doing, what diagnosis they're putting on your records. And this doctor did a lot of tests, confirmed that there was a tumor on my left adrenal gland. And all of the things that he needed to confirm, he confirmed. But he kept having these bi-weekly Zoom calls with me that would last about 5 or 10 minutes, and he would bill $400 or $500 to my insurance company. And just kept stringing me along, tried this diuretic medication that did not help the symptoms at all. I was so dizzy all the time at this point that I was not driving, which was a huge change in my lifestyle. I was usually just go on a trip at the drop of a hat. I had anxiety so bad that I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and put on benzodiazepines, which is not healthy. I had insomnia so bad that I had to take a old antidepressant, trazodone, plus Ativan, which is a benzodiazepine, to get some sleep. There were a lot of symptoms, and at the point that I finally got to, my life was very small at that point. So I want you to watch out for when you get your endocrinologist. Again, he just this went on for 8 months of him testing and then having these Zoom calls. So finally I called him on it and said, what's the next step? Because I had already done loads and loads of research with reputable websites, such as MD Anderson, such as the Cleveland Clinic, the Mayo Clinic, the American Association of Adrenal Doctors, couldn't tell you what it's called right now, endocrinologist. And so I had done loads of research, and the next step was to take this tumor off. So when I called him on it, he said, I don't think you even have hyperaldosteronism. And I said, what about these other things that you've diagnosed me with? Do I actually have those? And he would not answer me. And so at that point, I said, thank you very much, which in a Southern woman way means F you very much. And he had wasted another 8 months of my time to get to a solution of being sick. I couldn't work. So the next endocrinologist, I did research and found a good endocrinologist with the University of Texas in Medical Center in San Antonio. And she did all the tests again. She looked at the tests that he'd already done. Again, she had done the CAT scan and saw the tumor. She had done the 24-hour urine test. She had done the salt loading test. And it all indicated that I had high levels of aldosterone. But she kept saying, I want to try to fix this with medication because of the risk associated with surgery. Well, I'd already been, the go-to medication is a diuretic, and I'd already been on that. It had been increased and increased. It was not making any difference for me. And I understood her reasoning, and we went through a few more months of adjusting the dosage, and I still was just so sick. And I felt like the solution was just not that far away, but she did not want to go there. So finally, she said, I'm going to refer you to MD Anderson in Houston, Texas, which is a high-quality organization. And I'm going to end this video, part 1, at this point. Please, again, like these videos so that I know that you're watching them. I'll get the next one loaded, and we'll start at the point where I was referred to MD Anderson for surgery. Okay, have a great day.